Hi, I'm Stacey Humphries from Eureka Ventures and welcome to Stacey Talks Hospitality. Last week we went over 5 key points I wanted you to go away and do some homework on in relation to your venue. And I specifically didn't go through each of the points in depth because I really wanted you to think about things before we went in depth. So this week we're going to touch on the first point, which is liquid assets. And this is so important, especially now you're reopening, because you've been closed for a while. Most venues have been closed for a while. So there are things that you need to do, and you need cash to be able to do them. So when I talk about liquid assets, what exactly do I mean? Well, technically speaking, liquid assets are assets that you can quickly turn into cash. But I'm going to add another step onto that as well. I'm going to say they're assets that you can turn into cash that you can use. And why do I say this? Well, there are some situations where you may have cash that you can't use, and that is to do with contracts. And that is something that's very venue specific and something that you really need to look into. Sometimes investors will say that they don't need any of their money back unless you go below a certain amount of cash in your bank. So it's very, very specific on what their terms are, and you need to know what they are if you have those kind of clauses in place. Other things that can happen to someone who is a very successful entrepreneur. A lady called Rachel, which you may know from Dragon's Den, but she also started up Red Letter Days. She had a few problems because she had to put a £3 million of her cash as a bond in regards to credit card payments. And when she got to that level and needed to go further into it, the bank moved her into administration. Now, unfortunately, by the time the company had been sold and taken over by someone else, that cash actually became available because it was no longer needed for a bond because everything had come back in. So sometimes you can have cash in your bank but you can't use it. So that's why I said a liquid asset has to be cash that can be used. Now this is very specific to each venue, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's really important that you look into that and see what your clauses and what your venues need to work around in regards to this. But let's move on to things that you can do and that everyone needs to be able to do. One of the biggest things that people need to know about is know what you owe. It's very hard to work out your cash and how to use your cash if you don't know how much debt you're in. Now, most of the time people will get an invoice, put it straight into an accounting system, so you have that snapshot of your business, how much it owes and how much money is supposed to be coming in from other invoices that you've sent out. But sometimes some entrepreneurs and some people that are just starting their own business negotiate with suppliers and builders and contractors a period of time that they can leave it before they start making payments on that, and sometimes those invoices don't get to the accounting system. Now that's great if you know in the back of your mind you've got 6 months before you need to pay something and all those kind of things, but then if something like COVID-19 happens and you're closed for 3 months, all of a sudden you lose that time that you could have had building up that revenue to pay. And so therefore you need to make sure that everything is put in the accounting system, so you know what bills are not necessarily just need to be paid today, but also that are coming up in the next few months. And you can schedule payments and all sorts of different things in regards to that as well. But the key is to know what you owe, because you can't negotiate with suppliers or anything like that until you know that. The next thing is looking at what you owe and then contacting your suppliers. Ultimately, your suppliers want you to have a successful business. It's in their best interest. But if you owe too much money, then they want their money back. And obviously in the ideal world, you wouldn't have debt. You would just pay off all the invoices and it wouldn't be an issue. But these are crazy times, and there are some invoices I am sure that you haven't paid yet just because you're not able to because the revenue's not coming in. So what I suggest is communication. Talk to your suppliers. It's really important that you keep up the communication with them and find out what their expectations are around payments towards them. Now, they will make recommendations, but don't accept them straight away, because you need to go to each of your suppliers and find out what all their expectations are first before saying yes to any of them. And they will all accept payment plans. They want the money, so they will negotiate with you in regards to that. Just make sure that you're aware of what all your obligations are. Now, there is a slight nuance to this, is that there will be some of your suppliers that are very, very small, and they will be really struggling at the moment. Some of the bigger suppliers will want the money in, and they will be happy with payment plans because they have a surplus that they can kind of go with. So what I would say is, make sure that you find out everyone's expectations, but also put in the back of your mind what the companies are like, and if some of them need the money more than others do, if it's a case of going into bankruptcy or just being more patient, just make a note of those as well. So the next step, before you go back to the suppliers and confirm what their payment plans are, is to know that there are going to be costs for you opening. And they might not all be beforehand, they might be in the first few weeks. Now, you can't rely on the fact that you're going to go straight back into the types and amounts of revenue that you had before COVID-19. So it's really important that you create a buffer of money, of cash in particular, to make sure that you can survive those first few weeks. Now, it might be that there's alterations that need to occur, or you might need to get posters done or signs put up, or all sorts of different things, change things slightly. You need to have some money so that you can put those kind of things in place. But also remember, you've got staff and they will be coming off furlough so that you can make revenue, and that means you need to pay them. So make sure you've got enough money to cover that, and a little bit extra, just in case something happens that you don't know about at the moment. Anyway, after that, then look at how much cash you have and go back to your suppliers. Now, when you go back to your suppliers, there's also another question you need to talk to them about in regards to payment plans. Going forward, a lot of suppliers, whether they are old suppliers that you've used previously or whether they are new suppliers due to things that you have to put in place in regards to COVID-19, will use a pro forma system, which basically is you will place an order, they will tell you how much it is, you pay for the order, and then they deliver it, and then you sell it or you use it. And this is not something that normally you would do, so you need to make sure you've got the money up front for that as well. But make sure you are aware of any of your old suppliers that want to do that as well, because if you are paying for an order as well as paying your payment plan, you need to make sure you've got both lots of money available to give those people. What I would recommend is, if you are going to have to use pro forma, say to buy your drinks or something, say to them, right, I'm going to decrease the amount of money I'm paying back for my payment plan, but I will have a pro forma in place as well. So that means they're getting money, you're not incurring extra debt, but you've also got that cash flow available that you can use. It's so important, it's so very important at the moment. They want something that they can monitor and make sure it's working. So be honest and be upfront with them. They will appreciate it in the long run, I promise you. Okay, so remember, know what you owe. Really, really important. Find out what the expectations of your suppliers are. Look at any extra costs that you might incur, add a bit of a buffer, and then go back and negotiate what your payment plans are going to be with your suppliers. And if you do that, you will be able to keep that base cash flow. but also just go back and double check all your contracts with both your investors and any bank contracts that you have. Really, really important to do that. Right, before I forget, because I always do, please subscribe. We'll also have our social media links in. At the moment I'm working more on the vlog side of things, but we will start putting up a few hints and tips over the next week or so. I hope your openings have gone or are going really, really well. Please let us know any tips and things that you've come across while you've been doing your openings, because it's going to be a learning experience for everyone. So let's keep that communication going, and I will see you soon. Bye.